Every and each game needs some main menu and some user interface, so you can click on some button and you will be moved to some games, changing levels, changing settings and so on. So we have to get into some user interface stuff. So let's get into it. First, let's create the script that will be responsible for our scene. So just right click, create and C# script. We are getting into UI stuff, so maybe just call it UI manager and add some object to the scene. We can call it UI manager object and attach our script to it, like so. Now we have to create our UI. How to do it? We have to right click and choose UI, and then we are looking for something that we want to add. We want to add a button, and whenever we click on that button, we will increment the value and display this value in UI as well. So just click on button, and as you can see now, I'm just hovering over the scene view and I will press F to focus on it and scroll down a bit more. Our canvas is pretty big, and comparing it to the camera that is there, this is very improportional. It doesn't matter really, because this is like two separate layers of objects. The UI is something different, and our camera and our stuff that we are going to do in our game will be like different panels, if I might say so. Even if we now click on a game, you can see that this big UI panel or canvas, how it says, will fit the camera, like so. But this might be a bit awkward to work with it like so, and there is a quick fix to it. You might click on the canvas and choose from screen space overlay to screen space camera and just add the camera to it, so it will fit our camera size. Now press F to focus on it and increase the size of it. So if you watch some tutorials online, you might see both of them in use. I prefer to use the screen space camera because this is more convenient for me. I can see straight away how the buttons are placed in respect to other objects that will be placed on the scene. Anyway, as you noticed, we've got some canvas. So all UI elements will be placed on that canvas. So this is something crucial to have it. Without this, you can't really work with buttons. And when you add the first UI element, the event system object is being added as well. It has to be there in order to make the canvas and all the objects working. There is one more thing we have to change. When you're still on the canvas, there is a canvas scalar. We need to change it from the constant pixel size to scale with screen size and choose the ratio of our camera. We have 16:9 ratio and we want to build for full HD. So just type 1920 to 1080 and you can match the width and height to set it equally to 0.5 if you want. And those settings are quite standard for any project that we are going to build in the near future. So whenever you create a new canvas, those settings should be fine to reproduce. So let's just position our button whenever we feel comfortable. I will put it in the middle, something like that, but I will use this rect tool because if you're using it, you can see these guidelines so that you are sure the button you're moving is in the middle. I'll just put it there and we'll try to make it bigger. So you just hold it on the edge and move it to the sides. And if you want to increase the size of it symmetrically, you can just press and hold Alt. So now it will stretch both directions. Now you can click on this button and expand it, because as you can see there is something in it because there is an arrow on this object. So just click on this arrow and you can see there is a text object as a child of that button. So if you click on it, you can manipulate the text that's on it. Let's call it maybe add 1, because whenever we click on this button, we will be adding 1 to the value of our counter. And increase the font size. It's really easy to change the size, just hover over the name of it and just slide it to the right or to the left. It depends if you want to increase it or decrease it. Of course, you can just click on it and type the value manually. It's up to you. You can change the font style to have it bold. There is no other fonts, so we would have to import it. I will show you how to do it in later videos. At the moment, just leave it as it is, and maybe we can change the color of our button. So in order to do it, we have to click on our button and choose the color field. Just click on it and choose something different. Now, whenever we click on our button, we want to display text in our game, not in the console anymore. We want to see it here in the game window. So in order to do it, we have to create another UI element, text element. So click on the canvas, right click on it and choose UI and text. And as you can see, we've got 2 elements as the children of our canvas. So let's expand this text a bit, put it more to the top and expand it to the sides with Alt key pressed. Let's increase the font size of it so that we can see it, and I'll press on the game tab to see it clearly, and maybe we can change the color of the text to white and put it in the middle. So let's do it. I just click on it, choose alignment to the middle and change color of it so it's brighter. So we have our text and our button. Let's move into our code so we can add some functionality to it. We want to increase the value of the counter. So let's define our counter variable first. It will be of type int and call it counter. And the starting value of it will be 0. So just assign 0 to it. Because we are going to click on the button, we don't really need to use update method for that. We would need a new method that we created ourselves. So just by looking on the methods that are already created, like start and update, let's do our own. So we are using void as it was used with these 2 others, and let's call it, for example, increase counter. And as you can see, we need to add parentheses now and the curly brackets. And inside this method, we will add functionality. So whenever the button is pressed, we need to increase the counter by 1. How to do it? By incrementation, so counter ++. And now we want to display it in this text field. How to do it? In order to display some values in the text field, we have to get a reference to this text, because at the moment our script doesn't know which text field we want to use. So we had to create a new variable of type text. But in order to do it, we have to include a special library that can work with UI. So this is the first time we will add some using statement. So just put using. Because this is in Unity engine, so we might say again Unity engine and now get into that class. So we'll put a dot and start typing UI. Put a semicolon at the end. From now on, we can use UI elements. So let's go here on the top of our class and add text variable and call it maybe txt counter. But at the moment, it will be a bit hard to get this reference to that text. The easiest way to make a reference is by dragging it and dropping it. So in order to do it, we have to create a field that will be created here in our script. To do that, we have to serialize that field. So in front of it, just make a square bracket and start typing serialize field. That will allow us to make this variable visible in the inspector. So save the file and go to Unity. If you click now on the object that holds the script, which is UI Manager object, here in the script component, you can see that there is text counter and the value of it is none. In order to make this reference, we have to just drag and drop this text object to it. The reference is made. So now we have to tell the compiler what needs to be displayed in this object. But before we do it, I just want to show you something. Let's click on our text object. And here we are making a reference to this text component. So we are making a reference to the whole component. And if you expand it, you see that there is plenty of other options, fields and values that we can manipulate with and change. And the one we want to use is this text field. So we have to get into the text component and then we have to get into the text field to change that text. Okay, so let's go back, and now after increasing this value, we have to use this text counter as a component. So text counter, this is the variable that holds the whole component, and now we want to get to this text field. So dot and start typing text. So now we have to assign some new value to it, and we want to display counter. So just type counter. But there is a problem. The counter is of type integer, and text, as the name suggests, is a text. So this is a type of string. All the text in programming are of type string, and they need to be provided in the quotes. But here we don't have to add quotes, we just have to convert our integer value into string. We did it before, so after the counter just put a dot, and as you can see we've got the method called toString. So just call it and put parentheses at the end. Nothing is going to happen yet, because at the moment we only created our method, but we didn't call it yet. Those methods that are always here whenever we open a new script, like start and update, they are defined, but the Unity knows that it has to start running it in a good time. But when we create our own method, we have to decide whenever we want to execute them. And we want to execute them whenever the button is clicked. In order to make it, we have to go back to Unity and click on our button and add some click event. Of course, event might be done within the code, but this is a more difficult way and we'll keep it for later on. At the moment, we will be using the simple way. So click on the button and scroll down, and here you can see the field that says on click and the list is empty. So we have a plus button that we can click on, so just do it. And here we are expecting some object. The object that this field is expecting is the object that holds this script that this method is attached to. We want to call some method from UI Manager script, and our script is attached to our UI Manager object. So we had to grab and drop this object into that field. And now we are looking for the function, but before we choose the function, we need to choose the script. It is UI Manager. And here we shall look for our method, which is called increase counter. So if you go back and click on it again, we are looking for increase counter, but I can't see any. Why? This is because all the variables and all the methods that we create are being set as private, as a default. So in order to see them in other scripts or in other classes or in inspector, like in Unity window, we have to make them public or put them as serialized field. And in this case, we have to make it public so we can see it from the Unity level. So at the very beginning of creating this method, we have to put a keyword public. So now it will become public and will be accessible from outside of this class. So let's save it and go back to Unity and do this step one more time. So click on the button, go to this field and choose our script, and here we've got our increase counter method. Just click on it and save it, and if we press play, it should be working now. As you can see, at the beginning there is a default value that was added to the field when the text object was created. We will change it in a second, but let's have a look what happens when we click on the button. I click on it, and as you can see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So it's working. The only thing we need to change is to change this first value. We might do it in clicking on the text object and just change it here to 0, for example, or I will show you how to do it within the code. Let's go back, and we have to set this value on the start of our application. So we are going to use the start method. In start method, we have to get into this takes the counter. So this is our component of that object. So let's do it, takes the counter, and now we have to get into this field where the text is being shown, so .text, and now we have to assign some value to it. And I think that most appropriate value for it is our counter value. So counter, and we have to change it to string because we can't display numbers like they are. All the values that we are taking from users or displaying on our screens, they are being converted to strings. So it's really important to keep that in mind and remember it. Whenever we get values from users and whenever we display anything, those values are always strings. So now if we go back to Unity and press play, so even though there was a new text here, it was changed to 0 at the very beginning of our application. And now just press add 1 and everything seems to be working. There is something more I would like to show you because we already know conditional statement, and I want to make it a bit more difficult. So just imagine we want to create an application that will increase this value only to 10. But once we get to the point where the counter is equal to 10, we don't want to increase it anymore. So how to do it? We have to add conditional statement. So in our increase counter, we have to provide a conditional statement. Maybe I'll do it below and then we'll modify it a little bit and ask if counter is less or equal to 10, we should do it. We should increase the value of it. But once it's go beyond 10, we don't want to do it anymore. So now we have to take those values and put it in here and just make it looking good. Save it. And now let's go back to Unity, press play, and let's quickly go up to 10. And as you can see, we went beyond 10. Now we've got 11. So why did it happen? Let's go back to the code and see it. So now, if counter is equal to 10, it will still be executed. So counter will be increased and the counter value will be displayed. So the 11 was displayed and we don't want it. We want to stay on the 10. In order to achieve that, we just can get rid of this equal sign. And now, as the last loop of our functionality will be when the counter will be equal to 9, then it will increase its value to 10 and get it displayed, and that's it. It won't increase anymore. So let's go back and try it out. Press play and just click it. It's 10 and it doesn't work anymore. So as you can see, conditional statements is just amazing. I would like to show you one more thing. So whenever we achieve this final stage, when our counter is equal to 10, we want to make our button uninterruptible so that we can't really click on it anymore. And if you click on this button, you can see here in this button component that there is a field called interruptible. If you unclick it and press play, you can see straight away that you can't click on it, so it's uninterruptible. So we want to untick this option once we get to that point. So let's do it. We have to make a reference to the button component. We have to create a variable of type button. So let's make it serialized field. It will be of type button, and let's call it btn counter component. Now we can use this name and put it in the place where we want to make it interactable. So if counter is less than 10, then it's fine. We want to have it interactable and, click on it. But we have to provide another condition when this button will become uninteractable. Put else, and here we will put this reference to this component. So once we get a component, we're just using interactable field and then assign a false value to it, like so. So now save it and open Unity, press play, and we are clicking, and once we get to the 10, you can see that we get an error, that it says that the reference is not set to an instance of an object. It is showing because we created this field and we call it, but we never assign a value to it. Now if you click on UI Manager object, you can see that this field is none, is empty, and we can't use it if it's empty. So we have to grab our button and put it in that field. And now if we play it and go up to the 10, it should become uninteractable, and it is.